Welcome to New York City. The Chicago Wildfire may have had a bumpy road to get here, but they come in as the number 2 seed in the Midwest. The Empire never got past the Toronto Rush, but they're the number 2 seed in the East. These two teams face off in the first round of the AUDL playoffs right now. Welcome back to beautiful New York City. And thanks for joining us here on ultiworld.com as we bring you live coverage of this first round of the playoffs between the New York Empire and the Chicago Wildfire. I'm Charlie Eisenhood. I'm joined by Wesley Kronk on a lovely afternoon here in Manhattan. We're on Randall's Island, right next to the beautiful Icon Stadium, and you can see the city urban background as a backdrop here in New York. And Wes, we got a great game ahead of us. This Wildfire team has never faced this Empire team. And so we're going to be in for a bit of a treat. What are some of the storylines you see coming into this game? Obviously, the teams don't know a lot about each other, but we know a lot about these teams from the way they've played this season.
Well, you know, Charlie, I think you nailed the main story right off the bat. These are teams that are unfamiliar with one another, and they haven't, there's not a lot of dissemination of footage, at least as much as there would like there to be to scout. They don't really know what they're up against. So these first few points, we're going to see them kind of test each other out, see what they're able to do, and see what the other teams are giving each other.
We'll talk more about some of the key stories as we get into the game, but we're underway. Chicago pulling to New York to start the game. New York's offensive line anchored by Isaac Saul, Taylor Brooks, Matt Aletta, Matt Stevens as we shot down to the end zone as they look for Matt Bode, and Matt Bode makes a play down in that far end zone. And we're going to see a lot of that from Matt Bode today as the Empire open up the scoring here and take a 1-0 lead.
Yeah, Charlie. No surprise that the Empire jump out to a hot start. It's a team that's been pretty fluid on offense throughout the year. Coming into the season, they were a team that defined themselves on their defense, but they've had a little bit of a change in mindset this year. Their offense is really running on all cylinders, and the key for them is going to be seeing whether or not their defense can make some stops and then punch it in the other end.
And we saw right away the impact of some of those new pickups for this Empire team in 2014, the North Carolina contingent. Isaac Saul, Noah Saul, and Matt Bode, all players from out of the city. Noah and Matt both played down in North Carolina. Isaac Saul played earlier this season for another pro team before he joined the Empire to play with his brother towards the end of this Empire season. So now we'll get our first look at this Wildfire offense, and one thing of note, Brody Smith receiving the disc right there will be playing today for Chicago. He's hardly played. He's played just 1 point all season long for this Wildfire team. He's been out with a knee injury, and if you're a follower of the sport, you know Brody Smith. So we'll see what kind of impact he can have on the game today. Looks like they're going to have him at the center handler position. Disc back in the hands of Smith here on this near side. Now ahead to Goose Helton, Jonathan Helton. He's going to put up a backhand over to across the field, looking for A.J. Nelson. And A.J. Nelson brings it down, and that's what A.J. Nelson does. He's had an outstanding season, one of the leading goal scorers in the AUDL. And we're going to have to talk about this Chicago-New York matchup from this past weekend when these two teams, well, I shouldn't say these two teams, but a Chicago team and a New York team faced off at the Chesapeake Invite in club competition.
Yeah, it's interesting, Charlie, that coming into that first point, the big story is that Brody Smith is on the field, when at the same time you have the 2-time reigning MVP, the guy who, after 2 years as the MVP, has just inflated his numbers this year, putting on a huge performance once again, and he is getting overlooked by a guy who just played his second point.
And that's the nature of the game, but you're absolutely right. Jonathan Helton has been outstanding for this Chicago team and more of the leader of this team in a lot of ways. Brody, as we just pointed out, has hardly played, and so we'll see what kind of impact he has. Didn't do much on that point, but
I'm sure we'll feel his presence before this game is over.
Absolutely. So Empire offense back on the field. We see Bode with it on the sideline. He gets it into the hands of Lionel Wininger, who fakes the backhand and then centers it back to Bode. Bode goes ahead to Noah Saul. Wininger playing downfield today, normally back as a handler, but he's been getting some early cutting motion here. Now with Isaac Saul, who floats it out to the side. And a big layout D, but a nice recovery from Wininger, who stayed with the play. Nice defensive effort there from Chicago, and they'll feel like they got robbed a bit on that one.
Yeah, it feels like the teams are just kind of feeling each other out right here, but that was almost a big play.
Noah Saul into the end zone for Wininger, who had an excellent point despite nearly giving up a layout block. Nice effort down there from the Wildfire, but we're off to an offensive hot start for both teams, and it's 2-1 Empire.
Yeah, both teams coming out playing pretty straight up man, trying to keep the big shots from going off, not hoping the other team doesn't build up too much momentum early on. Just trying to see what they're going to throw at them, and so far it's turned out on the offense's favor, all 3 points.
So last weekend at the Chesapeake Invite, many of the players on the field today were playing with their respective club teams. The Chicago Wildfire, almost everyone on this roster plays for Chicago Machine, the club team out of the same city. Only a handful of the players on this Empire team play for the New York Pony, which is the club team out of New York. But it should be noted that Chicago dominated New York in that game to the tune of 13-8, excuse me. And so we'll see what kind of impact that has on the game here. Of course, the wider field does make offense a bit easier, and Chicago did a really nice job pressuring the resets of New York. But as we see a shot go up here from Slover looking for Goose Hilton. Hilton goes up, and he can't come down with it. He got up over the top to make the play, but it bounced in and out of his hands. It was Justin Allen on the defensive side there for New York. And now the Empire defense will have the first chance at a break of this game. Billy Katz with it in the middle, and he'll float it out to the outside.
Billy Katz moving to the D-line this game, trying to get some offensive handling on the D-line that hasn't been able to move the disc as well as they'd like so far this season.
Now in the hands of the captain, Izzy Bryant. He goes ahead to Justin Allen. And Allen's going to fire a flick down the field, but this is into basically double coverage, more white shirts than black ones down there, and it's an easy block for Chicago. Miscommunication there between Allen and his intended receiver.
Yeah, not necessarily the role you usually see him playing. Probably holster that next time around.
Into the hands of Brody Smith in the center. He fires a little short backhand ahead to Jeff Sardneski. And now a simultaneous catch of the disc by both Greg Slover and Ryan Drost. And now a shot down the field, looking for Helton again. This time Helton makes the grab, and he's going to step around, throw a backhand, looking into the end zone, and it's a nice find. He hits Sardneski for the goal, and we're all tied up.
Yeah, I think, Charlie, that is that point is what the Empire were hoping for. They want to make the turns and hope to get them upfield, try to get shots at the end zone. Probably looking for a little bit cleaner shot when they do get those opportunities next time down the field, but just trying to get those legs working on the defensive side right now, try to start making turns, and eventually one of them will hit if you keep taking shots.
Beautiful night here in New York. It was a little bit cloudy earlier, and we still have a bit of cloud cover, but it's broken up a bit. We see some blue sky, and it's about 75 degrees and very humid here. We're right next to the East River. Frankly, we're smack dab in the center of the river here on Randall's Island. So the humidity perhaps a bit above average. This pull will trail out of bounds. And it will be Isaac Saul to bring it to the brick mark for the Empire.
An interesting thing, Charlie, for this offensive unit for the Empire, a lot of times when you have different contingents of guys who have played with each other separately, it can be tough to mesh them, but they've done a really good job of getting everybody on the same page and firing on the same cylinders.
Noah Saul swings it over to his brother Isaac, who goes across all the way to the outside for Matt Stevens. And now a shot from Bode looking into the end zone, and he finds Noah Saul for another smooth Empire score. So no turnovers yet for the Empire offense.
4 points, 5 goals. Pretty standard start to the game, huh, Charlie?
Absolutely, and both of these teams really define themselves a little bit more through their defense, so it's interesting to see not a whole lot of defensive intensity to start the game.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons that the Empire has been so successful this year and really has only lost significant games against Toronto is that their offense has simply been better. You mentioned at the start of the program, last year the Empire offense was a real liability.
Yeah.
And they relied on the defense to constantly keep them in games and win them games at times. And this year, the Empire offense has been better than average. They're still a team that's going to try to grind you down with defense over the course of the game, but much better work from the O-line.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see if Chicago opens it up here. They're a team that plays generally pretty conservative on offense, but with the addition of Brody and the lack of wind here in the stadium, I wouldn't be surprised to see him take some shots.
Bob Liu, normally the center handler for this team when Brody's not on the field, gets the disc. Now it gets out to the outside for Helton. He goes up the line to Nelson. Now Slover. Walden Nelson with the disc now. Patience here from Chicago. Bit of a contained defense from New York. Sagging off into the lane, letting the Wildfire have easy swings. Liu putting up a backhand now, looking for Helton. Izzy Bryant got beat, and Helton was all alone down there, and now he puts his foot on the line and throws it over to A.J. Nelson for the Wildfire score.
Yeah, and that's exactly why Goose is on this offensive unit this season for the Wildfire. Historically, he's been more of a defensive player. That's where he made his name. He is the AUDL's leader historically in Ds, but this year he moved to the O-line to use that speed downfield to try to open things up, and it's paid off huge.
Well, you see a nice move from him there. He'd been back around the disc, taking the easy resets, and kind of lulled Izzy Bryant to sleep by just letting Bryant hang out in the lane and do what he wanted there. But then as soon as he noticed Bryant maybe not paying attention to the end zone, he went, and an easy huck and an easy completion.
Yeah, the Wildfire aren't a team that are going to be making a ton of deep plays throughout the game, but they keep their talent around the disc, and when they see an opportunity, they move downfield pretty quickly with it.
3-3, no breaks in the game. Empire offense back on the field, comes to the center for Isaac Saul. Small double team look from Chicago. Not a lot of pressure, but trying to make it a little more difficult for New York to get the swing off. Inside flick comes to Matt Auletta, who gets it over to Isaac Saul. Now with Taylor Brooks and a whistle. It's going to be a 10-yard penalty against Chicago. Contact on the mark. That's Kevin Kelly marking up on Auletta. Excuse me, that's Brooks with the disc. Now with Auletta. Dished to Noah Saul.
Blown assignment on the far side.
Brooks holding. Gets it to Auletta. Better defense here from the Wildfire, forcing a few more passes just like New York did on the last point to Chicago. And now a shot all the way across the field. And a nice grab out on the far side. Matt Stevens getting low to reel that one in as Isaac Saul on the assist. And the Empire stay perfect on offense.
Matt Stevens leading the team in goals this year. Probably a name you'll hear more than once this afternoon. It's interesting to watch on a team like the Empire. They seem to be moving the disc from side to side on the field, using the extra space on this AUDL field a little bit better than the Wildfire. You have to wonder now that a team like the Wildfire is so dominated by players focused on the club game. Have they gotten out of the nuance of the pro game, and are the New York players going to be able to take advantage of that?
Absolutely, Wes. And we're seeing already a little bit of the chess match here. There's both teams starting to make some defensive adjustments to make it a little tougher. And notably, Matt Stevens, 57 goals on the season. And the next closest is Matt Bode and Ryan Drost, who each have 28. So that goes to show you just how often Matt finds some space in the end zone. Brody Smith's going to walk to the disc here for the Wildfire. Big flat mark from Sean Childers, and Brody's going to step around the mark and put up a huge backhand looking for Helton down in the end zone, and it's an easy score for the Wildfire, and that's exactly why Brody Smith is on this team.
You know, it's an interesting defensive decision that the Empire have made, putting Childers on Smith instead of putting him downfield somewhere. You know, it's pretty clear Brody's not going to be running around. You know, he is not moving very far from the center handler spot. It seems like a bit of a waste to have, you know, one of your primary, like, run him down, grind him out defenders on a guy that's not moving.
Yeah, Childers known for his tenacity downfield and good speed, although Childers, like Smith, coming off of an injury. Childers joined this Empire team late in the season. And you make a good point, though, Wes. Smith has really done nothing but walk. He has collected the disc in the middle of the field and made some short jukes, but still a little bit ginger on the knee, and that's to be expected. He's hardly played over the last 12 months. Matt Bode with the disc for the Empire goes ahead to Wininger. Wininger steps and throws a flick straight up the line. Is this going to stay in bounds? And it's signaled a score. So a nice shot from Wininger. He finds Noah Saul streaking down to the back of the end zone, and Saul manages just to keep his feet in bounds. A lot of the Chicago players thought it was out of bounds, but refs were right there, and they said it was in.
Yeah, and you know, the Empire made it look like they were just doing a drill out there. Pretty much flawless execution on that one. And, you know, it just goes to show the timing and chemistry that this offensive unit have developed over the course of the season. It's just, you know, so starkly different than what we saw out of the Empire last year.
Well, and this is reminiscent of a game that the Empire played a couple of weeks ago against the DC Breeze that secured their #2 seed in the playoffs, when they opened up the game with 8 or 10 straight points without a turnover. And so far, we're through 5 for the Empire, and they have not turned the disc over yet. So we'll see if they can keep it up against this Wildfire team that's known for a bit more defensive skill than that DC team, who will take on the Toronto Rush later tonight up in Toronto. And the winner of that game will head to the semifinals, as will the winner of this. So this is the quarterfinal round, first round of the AUDL playoffs. Smith picks up for the Wildfire. Swings
notably
to Bob
guarded by Bryant this time.
Jeff Saradneski with the disc. No mark. He'll get it to Lou on this near side. Lou's going to fire, looking for Helton, and once again, Goose Helton is wide open downfield, and he's going to throw into the end zone, but this throw too far out in front of A.J. Nelson, and it hits the turf, and that's just an unpressured, unforced error from Chicago. And this will be the Empire's second opportunity to score a break.
You know, if I'm the Empire, I'm taking a deep shot to whoever Brody's covering right now. Test him out, see how fit he really is and how able to play defense he is.
Brody was known as a terrorizing deep earlier in his career, but lately with the injury, we'll have to see if he can keep that speed up and get up into the air for a disc. And now we do see a shot down the field. It won't be Brody, and it's a nice play. Great grab from Ryan Drost. And the Empire take a 2-point lead, and it's the largest of the game as they open up the defensive line scoring in this first round of the AUDL playoffs. Ryan Drost has been a real asset for this Empire team. His brother, his twin brother, I should say, Mike, played for the team last year and was one of the defensive leaders, not only of the team, but in the league. And both of them have been outstanding defensive players for the Empire this season. And really, they would be widely known names, I think, if they played in the open division. Both of them play in the mixed division for 7 Express out here out of New York in the club season. That team made it to the national championships last year. Here's the pull from Izzy Bryant. A roller, lands near midfield and rolls out of bounds. New York trying to take Chicago out of any sort of plays off of the pole. More than anything, I think the Empire need to figure out who's going to shut down Goose Helton.
Yeah, the guy's been unstoppable so far this game. Just runs all over his defender. He has a motor that doesn't stop.
Nice inside break there. This now with Colin Geppert. He gets it ahead to Nelson. Double team look from New York, but Nelson gets rid of it, finds Bob Liu, who fires a hammer across the field into the hands of Geppert. Geppert throws into the center of the field, and it's dropped. Dane Olsen, one of the starting defenders for this Chicago team, just had that bobble in and out of his hands. So now we see Matt Lamar. He dishes it off to Justin Allen, and now into the hands of Bryant. To Allen. Allen goes ahead to Ross Ward. Back with Allen. He fires an inside flick. That was a dangerous throw, but it got into the hands of a teammate. Now looking right near the end zone, Sean Childers with it, and he is going to be knocked to the ground as he tries to pivot over to his backhand side, and there's going to be a whistle. So he will get to center the disc and bring it in right on the goal line here for the Empire. Double team from Chicago. He dishes it off, nearly a turnover there.
Almost ruined his 100% completion.
But Izzy Bryant gets the disc, and he fires it into the end zone for Ben Ivers, and the Empire score again. And it's a 3-0 run for New York as they take a 7-4 lead.
2 quick breaks to make a 3-point game. Interesting turn. You know, in the AUDL, we've seen the timed game. It kind of lends itself to, you know, kind of streaks of scoring certain teams. Teams go on runs pretty easily here. 2 breaks in the club game is much different than it is here. So, you know, if I'm the Wildfire, I'm not that worried about it. And if I'm the Empire, I'm trying to keep myself from getting too overconfident because, you know, there's a lot of game left.
And we've seen it so many times from the New York Empire over
man.
the course of the last 2 years, where they'll get a lead against a team, they're playing great, and all of a sudden they just run into a brick wall in the middle of the second or third quarter, and they let the other team back into the game. I mean, 7-4 is a good lead, but certainly not a commanding one in the AUDL. And it's really come down to just some execution mistakes so far. Chicago's had a couple, and New York hasn't had any.
Yeah.
They really, the one time Chicago nearly got a D, it ended up with a fortunate bounce for New York, and they came up with a disc. Bob Liu with it for the Wildfire. Smith in the backfield with Liu. He's looking. Instead, he swings it across to Walden Nelson and comes back to Liu. Bob Liu pivots out to the far side and now into the middle for Goose Helton. Helton to Smith. Billy Katz nearly gets a block on Smith. Now Smith a little frustrated, so he's going to put it down the field. This is to Helton. There's going to be some defense this time, and a nice defensive effort down in the far end zone from Mike Drost. And I don't know if Drost got a piece of that or not, but either way, it was enough to shake Helton and make him turn it over.
Yeah, I was wondering when we were going to see Brody let it fly.
CJ Ouellette dishes to Billy Katz as the Empire comes straight up this near sideline. And the throw from Billy Katz too far out in front, but a nice effort there from Noah Saul. But we have a whistle, and it should be a New York Empire timeout. Tom Gibbons, the coach of the Empire, noticing that the stall getting a little bit high there on Katz. And he wanted to call a timeout. So with 2 minutes and 3 seconds to go here in the first quarter, score is New York 7, Chicago 4. And Wes, what are you seeing out there?
Yeah, it's hard to say. Like you said, like we've talked about, the only real difference between the two sides is a couple of execution errors. Other than that, they're playing pretty clean ultimate. Nothing overly exciting. Nothing really out of the ordinary. New York historically has been a team that throws a lot of different looks defensively, and I'm excited to see what they have in store later on in the game. But so far, it's been pretty straightforward, and same for the Wildfire. You know, they seem to both be kind of easing themselves into the game, and so far the Empire have done a little bit better job staying 100%.
And it should be noted that Chicago had to take a 13-hour bus ride here.
Mm-hmm.
They left late last night, and they got in today. There was some traffic, and I think they got in here to Randall's Island just afternoon. And it's tough to sleep on a bus and then come out ready to play. And I think maybe we're seeing a little bit of that here early on. I mean, they certainly had plenty of time to warm up, but New York has clearly been the sharper team to start the game. So with 2 minutes to go here in the first, disc is whistled back into play. Isaac Saul picks up for the Empire, and we do see the offensive line coming out onto the field for the Empire. If you're new to the AUDL, you should know that you're allowed to make as many substitutions as you like during timeouts. Not a typical rule in Ultimate if you're familiar with the club or world rules. And now we see a shot from Isaac Saul going to Matt Bode in the end zone, and Bode had his man easily beat. And the Empire run continues. And it's a 4-point lead for the Empire, the largest of the game. And that's nicely executed there by the Empire and the coaching staff, who set up some nice offense out of that timeout.
Yeah, the Empire offense is just, they've been as crisp as you can be so far this game. Clearly they are, playing fluidly with one another. Throughout the course of the year, they've developed the chemistry that they wanted to have at this point. It seems like as a squad, they're kind of peaking at the right time. You have to wonder, on the other side of the field, are the Wildfire really in this to quite the same extent as the Empire? A lot of these guys are coming off of a club tournament where this might not have been their focus for a lot of recent history, whereas the New York guys, this is what they're competing for. They don't have another club team to split their interest.
Chicago Machine, the club team that many of these Wildfire players play on, won the Chesapeake Invite last weekend in impressive fashion. As noted, they crushed New York Pony and then beat Atlanta's Chain Lightning in the final. Disc with A.J. Nelson now on the far side. Sticking out on that far side, and a nice run-through block from Ryan Drost. And starting to see some better defense. That was Goose Helton who was going to that disc, and he had Ryan Drost beat, but I think he slowed down a little bit. And
horizontal cuts are tough. If the throw is even a little bit off, you're going to get overrun by your defender.
Justin Allen can't catch up to that disc on the swing pass from Izzy Bryant, so it'll be right back into the hands of Chicago. And it's finally a break for Chicago, and Brody Smith fires into the end zone for A.J. Nelson for the Chicago score. But it was another opportunity for New York, but they had really their first major execution mistake of the game, and the Wildfire made them pay.
Yeah, and that's goal number 45 on the season for Nelson. He's been just an absolute force for this team, and he's carrying that over to the club side with Machine.
37 seconds to go in the first quarter. New York 8, Chicago 5. And these are always the interesting moments. If you're Chicago right now, you know that this is a huge point. If you can get one here and head into the second quarter down just 2, you're in great shape. If New York scores, it's a longer road back. The difference between 4 and 2 heading towards halftime can be sizable, because it's hard to score more than 4 than your opponent during a quarter. We've seen that with at least evenly matched teams. Lionel Winninger with the disc for the Empire. Fakes the big backhand. Flips it over to Noah Saul. Comes back to Winninger, who's totally unguarded, and he's going to fire one up to Isaac Saul, but a lot of Chicago defenders in the area, and it's an easy catch block for Chicago. 14 seconds to go. They're going to have to hurry. Kevin Kelly gets it ahead. Now comes to Andrew Sheehan. They're working it back and forth on the sideline. I'm not sure they know that there's only 6 seconds on the clock. They're going to have to get rid of it. Kevin Kelly, now he'll put up a flick, looking to the end zone. It's a jump ball, and it's a defensive play by the New York Empire. Nice play from Noah Saul to prevent the Chicago score. So we head into the second quarter with the score New York 8, Chicago 5. And pretty much everything clicking for New York so far to start the game, Wes.
Yeah, the Empire have to be happy to have escaped without letting in another point here at the end. They found themselves in that dangerous situation where you have a guy so far downfield undefended that you feel like you can't not throw it to him. But that guy happened to have a 6'3", guy who was going to come grab it out of the air if you didn't put up the perfect throw, and there just wasn't the perfect throw.
The throw from Winninger floated a bit, and indeed there were 2 or 3 much taller players from Chicago underneath that disc. And that is one thing that the Wildfire have as an advantage. They're certainly taller than the Empire. They have a lot of players over 6 foot on their roster.
And really, playing in conditions that they play in normally at Lane Tech Stadium in Chicago, the wind is just unpredictable. It's not super strong, it's not super consistent, it's just all over the place. And in those situations, height is going to beat jumping ability, 9 times out of 10 when you've got a disc floating down and you don't know how to time it.
And Chicago rebranded in this offseason. They last season were known as the Windy City Wildfire, and perhaps for good reason. They play in a windy setting. It's not windy at all here today. A very light breeze from left to right on your screen, but certainly nothing that affects throwers of the caliber on the field today. And we have seen sometimes the games out here on Randall's Island, the wind picks up a bit towards the later part of the afternoon, and it's coming up on 6 o'clock here in New York. We could see the wind become a factor as the sun begins to go down around 7:30, 8 o'clock, but until then, I don't think we're going to have much to speak of.
And it's hard to say, what effect that has in the game. These are both teams that are fairly comfortable playing in the wind, both coming from situations where they practice in it pretty regularly. So, I don't really see it favoring one team over the other. I will say that I expect that the Wildfire have to open it up at some point. They've been playing pretty conservatively on offense, and they have the weapons to go deep. Like we were talking about, they're a tall group. They have Brody, who can put it pretty much wherever he wants on the field. They have Goose, who can beat almost any guy downfield. The Empire, they don't have this one wrapped up by any means.
A couple of weeks ago in Washington, D.C., we watched the Empire open up a huge lead against the Breeze and then almost give it back. And it's been a bit of a problem spot for the Empire, and they really are not going to be able to afford a lull like that in this game against an even tougher opponent in the Wildfire.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, the best thing that can happen for them is for this game to stay close. That way they're kind of forced to mentally stay in it.
Second quarter is underway. Brody Smith and the Wildfire offense are out on the field. Bob Lou swings it over to Goose Helton, who's unmarked for the moment. Gets it to Slover, and who dishes right back to Helton. Now a little flash double team from the Empire. Empire looking to play a little bit more junk defense here. Slover going ahead, nice throw, finds Nelson. Nelson with the big swing into the middle for Helton. He'll send it all the way across. They've done a nice job today, Chicago, of using the full width of the field. Bob Lou. Little fake and a dish up the sideline. Nice effort there from Justin Allen.
That's what he's known for.
That's right. We've seen him make those plays, Wes. A whistle now, and Bob Lou is going to be able to walk it up 10 yards here. Walden Nelson gets it to Helton. Now with Slover. Slover hits Nelson, and there's going to be some sort of call. And I believe there was a travel call didn't see the signal from the referee, either a travel or a stall. Either way, the result is a New York Empire disc. So the Chicago turns it over.
Big change of events. That was a very smooth point up until then by the Wildfire.
Mike Drost holding for the Empire. Now with Izzy Bryant to Katz. Katz fakes the dish to Bryant and now hangs onto it and gets it over to Justin Allen. Allen ahead to Ryan Drost. Billy Katz with a nice body out there. Avoids the layout D from Brody Smith. Back with Katz.
Yeah, you can hear the Empire players yelling. Brody Smith visibly dogging it on the field right now.
Smith looking tired, and now Katz going to fire a hammer across the field and into the hands of Ryan Drost for the Empire score.
You know, sometimes it can be tough to notice when you're actually on the field and you're, playing side by side with someone, but, Brody he couldn't keep up. And you can't see the guy behind you. So Billy Katz doesn't realize that he's putting 4 feet on him every time he moves instead of the usual 2 inches. And, that layout D that Brody almost got was pretty unnecessary because Billy was just running all over him.
And we saw Katz command the disc on that point. And I expect we'll see some more of that. It'll be interesting to see how the Chicago coaching staff handles that situation, because it's clear that Brody's not going to be able to play sustained points where he has to chase somebody around.
Well, they're in a tough spot, because
double-edged sword.
On one hand, you have arguably the most, threatening offensive weapon in the game when he's on, when he's healthy at least. But if he's not going to be able to play defense, does the offensive potential outweigh the defensive struggles? It's hard to say. As long as you're down, you gotta keep thinking about it, though.
Wildfire offense moving smoothly once again. Last point, they looked great until the whistled travel call that gave New York the disc. Neil Phelps moves it up the sideline, hits Andrew Sheehan. Sheehan looking into the end zone. And Sheehan finds his man. It's Kevin Kelly. And the Wildfire looking nice on that point. Sort of a second string offensive line there, but got the job done. And one of the better looking points we've seen from the Wildfire, certainly the best in this second quarter. 8 minutes, 40 seconds to go. 9-6 the score. New York on top by 3.
Yeah, really smooth point by the Wildfire. Sometimes that's what it takes. Get the second squad onto the field, get back to basics. Show them that, you don't have to do anything fancy to get it down the field. The system works. That is, that's what that second, third squad is good for, is putting the basics on display. And they did right there. It's interesting to see Goose out on the field on defense. I wouldn't be surprised to see he and A.J. Nelson play both ways, basically until they get this thing back to tied.
Pull goes up from Helton. And it's going to land past the Empire players, and it's a poor job from the Empire at corralling that pull. But now Matt Stevens gets it and moves it ahead to Taylor Brooks. Brooks back to Aletta. Noah Saul on the near side. Swings back to the center for Aletta. And a nice defensive effort there. Beautiful play on the swing pass there.
Yeah, Chicago's D the last couple of points they've been firing. They're doing great. It's they just got to capitalize on the turn when they actually get them.
It's a great opportunity here for Chicago to get their first break of the game. Not quite into the end zone. Helton looks to the strike, doesn't have it. But now just a little flick up the sideline, and it's an easy throw from Chris Vandervoort. And that's Chicago's break. So they close the lead down to 2. So that stacked defensive line gets the job done.
Charlie, if you were to just watch that point in isolation, you would have a very different opinion of how this game has gone thus far. The Empire didn't seem to have a lot of motion on that point offensively. They didn't have a lot of cuts, opening up lanes and throws. And, on the other side, the Wildfire's defense was firing on all cylinders, just, shutting down on man defense. That's what they came in this game wanting to do, and they were getting it done there. It's always great when you create a turn, too. Just the effect on momentum and mentality, it's just, it's a bigger boost than lucking into something.
Two-point game now. 7 minutes, 37 seconds to go here in the second quarter. New York Empire offense back onto the field. No changes. That's the starting 7. Auletta, Brooks, Noah Saul, Lionel Wininger, Matt Stevens, Matt Bode, and we do see Billy Katz replacing Isaac Saul off of the starting 7. So a little bit of run both ways from Billy Katz.
Interesting coaching decision. Saul got trapped with the disc a little bit on that last point. So, if this is in response to that, they may have shot the wrong guy because Saul's receivers really weren't giving him much to throw to.
Here's the pull from the Wildfire. It'll be Matt Auletta picking up for New York. Billy Katz with some nice motion to get things going back and forth with Noah Saul. And they chew up about half the yardage with a big give and go between the two of them. Comes back to Saul. It's been Katz and Saul the whole way here. Billy Katz looking to get it once again. This is just a dominator from New York. Continues to be back and forth between Saul and Katz. And now, finally, Katz swings out to Auletta, who received the pull, and now, there's a wide open cut into the end zone. Auletta didn't go there. Katz dishes to Matt Bode. Bode looking into the end zone, and that's beautiful offense from the New York Empire.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the contrast in styles between Bode and Katz. Katz just running as much as possible, trying to get his guy off of his hip, making space with his motion. Bode, on the other hand, just floating the disc into the perfect spot, just finessing it right in there. It takes both, though.
And maybe that's what we saw from the Empire coaching staff, a little bit of a shift in style in the backfield. As you pointed out, they had a little bit of trouble getting the right motion last point when they give up the break, and this time it was nothing but motion.
Well, if the cutters aren't going to give you motion, then it's got to come from the handlers, and that's exactly what Katz did. He did it on the point before when the defense got the turn, and he ran all over Brody. He's putting his name on this first New York playoff game.
7 minutes to go here in the first half. Bob Lou with the disc for Chicago. Chris Vandervoort dishes back to Lou.
Junkier look from the Empire than we've seen so far today.
A bit of a double team. Now Chris Vandervoort going to fire a big backhand down the field. But there's nobody down there. So a turnover from Chicago on a throw that needed to hang up in the air a bit longer. Walden Nelson was headed that way, but nowhere near the disc when it hit the ground.
That's a lot, in a lot of ways, what the Empire wanted. Get that deep throw downfield, the harder throw. Don't let them go back and forth. Junk look worked.
Well, now we'll have to see if New York can work the full 80 yards. Izzy Bryant with the disc, gets it ahead to Ryan Drost. Ryan Drost is firing, looking for his brother Mike, and he gets it to him. Dish back now to Matt Lamar, who looks off the deep cut. Now with Childers. Swings to Bryant. Comes right back to Childers. Childers looking to Lamar, who makes a nice catch. Had to make a little bit of an adjustment. Right on the goal line now is New York. Bryant looking, firing to the front of the end zone. And it's another defensive score for the New York Empire as Ryan Drost scores again. And that's impressive offense from the D-line of the Empire. And they're back in front by 4.
Yeah, the Empire have had no problem, whether it be their starting O-line or their D-line, moving the disc today. Both directions been, just working very smoothly, methodically. Not a ton of deep looks. That deep look there was only pretty much a little bit past half field anyway. Just pretty textbook offense out of the Empire. After a point on the offensive unit, we see Katz back on the field for the defense.
Billy Katz has really grown his profile here in New York. Started playing only a few years ago for the NYU University team, and this throw floats up over the top on just a simple undercut, and it's going to be right back into the hands of the Empire. Mike Drost. It's a great opportunity for the Empire. They could extend to their biggest lead of the game here. Ben Ivers holding now on the sideline. He'll swing it off the line and into the hands of Jesse Lieberman, one of the other North Carolina transplants. Billy Katz now out to the far side for Ivers. Comes back to Katz. Ivers holding now, and now Ivers with a nice little touch throw into the end zone as he hits Mike Drost for the score, and it's a 5-point New York lead. And again, it's been miscues from Chicago, and it's costed them almost every single time.
Yeah, great patience there from the Empire D-line again to just work the disc down the field. It's amazing how when things are going well, they can really go well, and it seems like the game just comes to a team so easily, and that's, seems to be where the Empire are at right now. On the other hand, Chicago not playing a terrible game, just when they have had miscues, those miscues have come back to bite them, and that's really what the difference in the score is. I would be surprised if there was more than 1 or 2 turnovers more than the difference in the score. Just every time there's a turn, Chicago has been on the losing end of a goal.
Absolutely, Wes, and you think at halftime, Chicago's going to have to figure out something different against this New York offense. They have to generate some pressure. They cannot just count on this Empire team to give them the disc. So far, that has not been the case.
Well, if they have any chance of stopping them, they need to figure out a way to utilize their height better.
Walden Nelson acting as the center handler at this point for the Wildfire. Bob Lou on the outside, and it's Brody over on the far side of the field. Nelson dishes to Lou. Comes ahead to Goose Helton. Helton back to Lou. Nice shot up the sideline for A.J. Nelson. And Nelson with a blade trying to go over the top, but he's not going to get there. Bit of a poor throw there from A.J. Nelson, and Elliot Bemis makes the play. Just really had to track that disc in the air. He was right where he needed to be to knock it out of the air. 4 minutes to go here in the first half, and another great opportunity for the Empire defensive line. C.J. Ouellette initiates. Back into the hands of Bryant. Ouellette back to Bryant. Up the line to Childers. Throws a short backhand. And Izzy Bryant trying to corral that throw. Can't quite get to it. So the disc back in the hands of Chicago. So there's a break for the Wildfire. And they needed to keep the Empire off the board on that possession.
They're having a hard time regrouping here, though.
Slover dishes it back to Lou.
Got Brody stuck downfield.
Brody comes underneath for that one. Now looking to make something happen with his throws. Not there, so he'll swing it over to Helton. Helton around to Walden Nelson. Now Lou. Nice find, hits A.J. Nelson. A.J. Nelson with a short backhand, and this time it's for a score. Greg Slover into the end zone for the Wildfire as they cut it back down to 4.
Yeah, you know, it's a sign of a veteran team where you're able to maintain composure. And when they got the disc back, the Wildfire, they didn't have the quickest reset, but they kind of persevered, powered through, got some resets, and then eventually got back into their rhythm and made it look easy towards the end. If you're the Empire, another turn, which is good. You can't be that disappointed that one of them doesn't make it back downfield for a break. If you're going to have a miscue, it's the best time to have it is after you've already forced a turn. So, another solid point by their defense. They're happy to trade points right now.
This pull from the Wildfire is going to float down about 10 yards in front of the end zone into the hands of Matt Auletta.
There you go.
Auletta with the swing to Isaac Saul, who had to lose. Both teams doing a better job on the cutters than on the handlers.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Taylor Brooks looking to get rid of it and does, finds Noah Saul. Now Lionel Wininger, and Wininger's going to reach up and fire a backhand. It's got a lot of legs underneath it. Will it stay in bounds? It will not. So it floats out the back of the end zone. And another perhaps poor decision there from Wininger, who had the throw that floated up in the air at the end of the first quarter that almost resulted in a Chicago break. And
yeah, he had a similar throw down the sideline that barely stayed in. One of those, you get to the sideline, the coach says, nice work, don't do that again type situations.
And so a timeout on the field. Chicago wants to get their offense into the game. They know that they need to put some points on the board here before the end of the first half. 2 minutes, 12 seconds to go here in the second quarter. And New York with a 12-8 lead. And it's really, in a lot of ways, it feels like a difference in energy on the field. The Empire just playing with a little bit more urgency. I think we've seen that from the start of the game.
Yeah. Yes and no. I think I think the Wildfire's defense has been pretty high tempo. There was a couple points where that was the dominant unit in this game. They weren't able to shut down the Empire the way that they wanted to, but they were making it difficult for them to score. The Empire's offense is just clicking a little bit more right now. The main disparity in energy that I'm seeing is between these two offenses. Empire have just, they've been doing their thing that they've been doing all year, and maybe that is the subtle transition is the Wildfire are not doing what they've been doing all year. They have a big difference in the middle of the field in Brody Smith, which is when you bring in an element that is so, pivotal and so. This is a guy that gets the disc every time he asks for it in most situations. You just throw that into something that's been working. It's tough to expect that to start working from the beginning. No surprise that they've struggled a little bit to find their rhythm so far in this first half.
We're back underway with the Wildfire offense on the field. Notably, Smith not on the field. Oh, and a poor play from Chicago there. Colin Geppert was open, but he stopped running to the disc, and it was a easy run-through block for Mike Drost. And the Drost brothers seem to get those kinds of Ds all the time. You almost wonder if they're baiting the throw and then catching up to it. Here's Mike Drost with it just outside the end zone. Now he's going to throw it into the end zone looking for Billy Katz. And Billy Katz makes the play. And what a trust throw there from Drost. Katz had basically no separation when he started his cut. But by the time it got out to the back corner of the end zone, he got a step. And it was a score for the Empire. And that's a huge moment in this game with just under a minute and a half to go here in the first half. And the Wildfire taking a timeout to bring in their offense. They cannot convert and end up giving up a short field turn. And the Empire easily putting it into the end zone.
Yeah, Billy Cat's having a great game. So far this first half, probably not going the way most people expected. Certainly coming into this, I expected it to be at least a little bit closer. It seemed to me that the Midwest was a little bit tougher of a division, so I expected the Wildfire to put up more of a fight than a lot of people did. But thus far, it's been all Empire.
1 minute, 28 seconds to go here in the second. Disc whistled into play. Bob Liu picking up for the Wildfire. He's going to swing it over to A.J. Nelson. Now in the hands of Jeff Seredneski, who goes ahead to Kevin Kelly. Kelly with a nice flick up the line to Helton. Swinging all the way across, and Kelly, his throw floats past Smith, and it was unclear exactly who had the miscommunication there, but Smith had no chance of getting that disc, but it was saved by a nice layout right on the sideline from Seredneski. So that's a break for Chicago. 45 seconds to go here in the quarter. Wildfire working, and they seem to get to midfield with relative ease on most of their offensive points, and then suddenly hit a bit of a wall against this Empire defense. Kevin Kelly with it. Gets centered up. Now Bob Liu. 22 seconds to go. Walden Nelson holding. Just back to Liu. Now Liu looking towards the end zone, and a run through D. A great play from C.J. Ouellette, who played on the offense for this team all throughout last season, but has been a relatively successful convert to defense. And now with 6 seconds to go, I think the Empire may just be happy to let the time run out on the clock. Oh, we see a timeout taken right there with about
what a turn!
with about 1 second on the clock. Walden Nelson, after catching the turnover, calls a timeout.
And we don't have a lot of way of proving it, but there was absolutely time left on the clock. I looked up as I saw him pull the timeout. There was at least a second left.
And we're going to have to see what the referees decide to do and how much time they decide to put back on the official clock. Right now it reads all zeros here in New York. But absolutely there will be some time back on the clock. And it's going to be...
No.
The referee just let us know that it's going to be 0.9 seconds on the clock. Thought we were the official timekeepers.
We have enough equipment, we might as well be.
Sure be nice to have that scoreboard tied right into the broadcast feed.
Yeah, well, we haven't been back to Randall since last season. It's nice that we have the scoreboard this year. It's the first time that we've been able to give commentary with a sense of awareness of what the actual time situation is.
Randall's Island last year, the scoreboard was here but not working. So often had to rely on the public address announcer to call out the time. Not good for fans or broadcasters or players for that matter. But it looks like we're going to have, they're still working on the clock situation. Right now it reads 10 seconds. That's obviously not going to be the case. Unless timeouts with less than 10 seconds to go, reset the clock to 10 seconds, which... Nope, now they've fixed the clock. So it's going to be 1 second on the clock. It's going to be Brody Smith with the disc, Chicago in a vertical stack. And we will see if they can get a throw into the end zone here. A 5-point game right now. Going into half down 4 would be a real psychological boost for this Chicago team.
My bet, flick to the right corner of the end zone right away.
Smith picks up, and he's going to fire it immediately. Looking to that back corner, and you called it, Wes, right into the end zone as time expires. And that's got to be frustrating for the Empire defense, who just absolutely got burned. And you have to expect the flick out of the hands of Brody Smith.
You really do. He can put it wherever he wants. In that situation, I honestly expected it to be a floatier, kind of 50-50 ball. But his man just got so open that he put it right to the spot, and he was the only one who could run under it.
So a great play call from Chicago. And I believe we're going to have 1 second on the clock here because the clock doesn't start, I don't believe, until it's touched by a cutter. So in that situation, the initiating to start the clock is not out of the thrower's hand, but rather when it touches the next player. So no time goes off the clock in that situation because it was an immediate score.
Starts and stops at the exact same time.
Exactly. So we're going to have 1 second on the clock. Obviously, it means nothing. This is just going to be a point to take us into halftime. And indeed, fans are already heading to get some food here, knowing that the intermission is imminent. You can see the scoreboard there, 1 second. New York 13, Chicago 9. And it does say that it's the third quarter, but that we know to be false. Well, Wes, as we get ready for the end of this sort of in-name-only poll here, what are your impressions of this first half? I think obviously a big score for Chicago there to get it back down to 4 before the end of the half, but it's really been overall a much stronger start for New York.
Yeah, you said it. The Empire have been the story of this game thus far. They really have not made many mistakes, and luckily for them, maybe when they have made mistakes, they haven't been capitalized on by the Wildfire. The exact opposite is true for the Wildfire. They in a lot of ways are playing a pretty solid game right now. Not the crisp game that you would expect out of them, but the score is more of an indication of the Empire's ability to capitalize on the few turns that the Wildfire have made, more so than the sheer number of them. They just have not had they haven't done a great job of recovering after a turn, and they've been broken more times than they would hope.
And so the score here at halftime is New York Empire 13, the Chicago Wildfire 9. We will be back at the start of the third quarter here in about 10 or 15 minutes live on UltiWorld. Thanks for being with us. Hello and welcome back to New York City for the second half of the New York Empire versus Chicago Wildfire playoff matchup here in the AUDL. At the half, the Empire lead the Wildfire 13-9. So glad you can be with us here live on UltiWorld. I'm Charlie Eisenhood alongside Wesley Cronk. And we are getting set to start the second half. Wes, what are some of the keys to this second half? I think we saw a little bit of an unusual first half, sort of meandered a little bit through some various stages, but what's going to be the key for both of these teams heading into the second half?
Well, the Wildfire need to get their offense figured out. You know, they haven't had a ton of miscues, but the ones that they have been costly. And, you know, they're going to have to get things ironed out if they're going to be able to, you know, trudge back and close this gap.
Isaac Saul going ahead, and right away it's going to be a turnover for the Empire offense as Isaac Saul throws into coverage. So the Wildfire are going to have a chance to close this lead down right at the beginning of this half.
Yeah, you know, and if you're the Empire, you need to do the opposite of that.
Absolutely. I mean, we saw such clean work from them in the first half. Big shot down the field from the Wildfire, but nothing doing for Chicago as Neil Phelps unable to run that disc down. So the Empire lucky to get a restart here. But, you know, it's been those kinds of moments that the Empire have cashed in almost every time. And Chicago has not. They've given the disc back in a number of key moments with their defensive line on the field. Now, the huck from Isaac Saul to his brother Noah misses the mark. So 2 quick turnovers for Isaac Saul. And Chicago now looking at a nice opportunity again to close the lead down to 3.
Isaac Saul, who seemed to be a bit in the doghouse in the middle of the first half, has not done himself any favors to start the second. 2 quick turnovers.
Big shot down the field, looking for Kevin Kelly. But Kelly can't come up with it after Matt Bode comes down and makes a play. And Kelly's frustrated. He's looking to the referee for a call, but he's not going to get it. So Noah Saul this time will pick up for the Empire, and it's their 3rd chance on this first point of the second half. Matt Aletta holding for the Empire. Little high release backhand over to Isaac Saul, who bounces it to the outside. Now with Taylor Brooks, who finds Winninger for a 20-yard gainer, and Winninger going to fire down the field, and it's out the back. And Tom Gibbons, the Empire coach, very frustrated on the sideline after a 3rd miscue from his offense. And that's another poor turnover from Winninger, who's had the right idea but the wrong execution so far in this game.
Yeah, this is the sloppiest point of the game so far. We talked about 2 teams having to capitalize on the few mistakes that the others would make. This half may turn out different.
And a big layout D there from Noah Saul, but a late whistle. And I believe that means the disc is going to stay with the Wildfire. I think Neil Phelps was frustrated because he thought he had secured the disc, and looks like the ref agreed. Von Allengilan to the outside. Now goes all the way around to Phelps. And another turnover. So, despite 10 minutes to talk everything out, both teams coming out a little bit sloppy to start this second half. A lot of contact there from the Wildfire. No call from the referee. Matt Aletta holding now. Gets it to Isaac Saul, and now there's going to be a whistle. We may have an offensive foul here. And we're already down to 8 minutes and 23 seconds here in the 3rd quarter without a score yet in the second half. So almost 4 minutes have come off the clock.
Interesting subs by both sides. See Goose come in for the injured Wildfire player, and the sub is immediately matched, taking Isaac Saul out, putting in Billy Katz in, adding a little firepower to both sides.
Noah Saul flips it ahead, finds Winninger. Nice bid from Allengilan. Oh, and a nice grab there from Noah Saul to save possession for the Empire. Here's Katz. Swings to the outside for Winninger. Winninger fakes the backhand. Now needs to get rid of it. Stahl's going to get a little high here. He does. He flips it out to the outside. The could trail out of bounds, but no, Matt Stevens makes a nice play, keeps his feet in bounds. Now Matt Bode firing a hammer. Big layout, but not enough. And now Winninger firing into the end zone. And he finds his man. It's Matt Stevens headed to the back corner for the Empire score. And Chicago's got to be frustrated after that point.
Yeah, in some ways, yes. In some ways, no. If I'm Chicago, I'm feeling pretty good after that point in some ways because, the biggest thing that was a threat to them going into the second half was the Empire continuing to be that kind of, just well-oiled machine that they had been in the first. If they're coming out shaky like that, it could be a completely different game. And, you have to keep in mind, that was the Empire starting out on offense. Their offense just played 4 minutes of game time. There are kind of little considerations that factor in. The Wildfire didn't get the point, but they may have come out on top after that, mentally and stamina-wise.
Now, I hear that, Wes, and I think you make a good point. If it continues like that for the entirety of this half, clearly that's going to be to the Wildfire's advantage. But with 3 opportunities to put it into the end zone and no score, it's not going to get it done, especially when you're behind. And so now they're back down 5, and the offense back on the field. Here's Goose Helton with a nice undercut. Helton flips it ahead. It's Slover with the disc. Gets it to Lou. Lou fakes a flick and swings it over to A.J. Nelson. Into traffic, but a nice grab underneath from Dan Williams. Once again, the Empire doing a nice job once they're in their own half. Helton. Now Williams. Helton now going to take a shot, looking for Brody Smith, but it's an easy block for Ryan Drost. And that's a thrower error there from Helton. Got a little impatient after the stout Empire defense kept him out of even getting within 15 yards of the end zone there for a lot of throws. And they give it away to the Empire. So thin ice here for Chicago. Justin Allen wants to throw the huck, but it's not there. Now he gets it back, thinks about it again, and this time he's going to put it up. It's going to be a long run for Ivers, but he makes it, and he'll catch it for the score. And the Empire open up their biggest lead of the game. It's 15-9.
Now that's something that the Wildfire certainly have to be frustrated with, Charlie. They put up a pretty good fight defensively on the first point of the half. Weren't able to get the break, but it was a nice momentum boost for them. To come out on the next point and have another break thrown their way. It's just, if they're going to claw their way back into this, they got to put up breaks at some point and stop getting broken. And that one worked against them.
And the winner of this game is going to face the winner of the Toronto Rush and DC Breeze game, which is also underway up in Toronto. And it's the Rush with an 8-3 lead right now over the Breeze. And the way that Toronto has played so far this season, you don't want to say the game is already over, but the Breeze have a lot of work to do to claw back against a Toronto team that has only lost once in its 2 years in the league, and that was against the Montreal Royale in a meaningless game after they had already secured the #1 seed in the playoffs. The Rush, of course, the defending AUDL champions, and they are hoping to protect their home field as the championship weekend next weekend will host semis and finals in Toronto. One of these teams will make the trip.
I'm sure that the New York guys want another shot at the Rush after 2 really close-fought battles with them so far this year.
And don't forget about their tough semis battle last year in one of the better games of the year for the Empire. It's not enough, though, to overcome the Rush. So now the Empire, after the Chicago turnover, are going to have a chance to again extend this lead. Sean Childers with the disc for New York. Dished off to Bryant, who goes ahead, and it's Ryan Drost who makes a real nice catch on the near side. Back with Bryant, who steps around through a foul and swings it, but that foul means that he will get to advance the disc 10 yards. Check back into play. Bryant with a nice flick across to Childers, who's right in the center, who dishes back to Bryant. Now Katz to Bryant. Ryan Drost. Bryant goes towards the end zone, not quite in. Right on the front of the goal line. Billy Katz now, and he's going to step around and throw a big blading backhand, and it doesn't have enough legs. Justin Allen unable to catch up. And so one of the really the first miscues we've seen from Katz in this game as he throws away the disc on the goal line.
Yeah, and definitely a throw he can make, just put a little bit too much angle on it when pushed it down faster than Allen was expecting.
Sun has come out here in New York. It's feeling warmer, but still very little wind to speak of. And a nice throw up the line there for Chicago. Now they've got a man on the move. Oh, but look at the speed of Ryan Drost, who spikes the disc into the ground. It just absolutely ran past the offensive player. That's Alex Drico-Wagner, who was the intended target, but Ryan Drost just showing off the speed that has given him so many Ds this season for the Empire.
You can just kind of tell by watching him, those Drost just love playing defense.
And as Izzy Bryant brings it to the line, the Empire are going to take a timeout with 3 minutes, 12 seconds to go here in the third quarter. Man, this quarter has flown by with all of the turnovers.
Well, an entire third of the quarter was just the first point.
And so remember that the clock stops in the AUDL on a score. So if there's a lot of scoring, the scores can pile up. And the clock seems to tick quite slowly, but with all these turnovers, we're watching this third quarter disappear in a hurry. And so far, it's been a very positive quarter for the New York Empire. We've put 2 points on the board and are looking to add a third.
Yeah, it hasn't been positive in the same ways as the first half, where it seemed almost effortless for them to score, and they were doing a great job converting when they got these. Now they're doing what they need to do, and that's get to the end of this game. They have the lead built up. They're happy to trade points. They've already put on another break. Getting through 9 minutes of this game, only adding to their lead. Yeah, great second half so far.
So the offense onto the field for the New York Empire. It's going to be Matt Auletta with his impressive mustache checking the disc into play. And now Auletta's going to reach back and put up a big backhand. He's trying to find Matt Bowe down the field, but it's too far out in front. And so just like that, the Wildfire are going to get it back. But now the Wildfire having to work through their defensive line.
See if they have any more success getting past half field into the end zone.
And a throw up the line, unable to be brought down by Ben Raymond, who made a nice bid to try to get it, but it tipped off of his fingers. So now New York only has about 30 yards to go to put it into the end zone. 2 minutes, 20 seconds to go here in the third quarter. Nice high release backhand, gets it to Bryant, now in the hands of Justin Allen. Noah Saul firing down the field, but tipped away. Nice D down in that far end zone from Chicago, and that's Goose Helton staying under that disc very nicely and rising up to make the play.
Yeah, Goose not putting up the defensive numbers that he has in the previous seasons because he hasn't got as many points on that line, but still top-notch defender in this league.
Casey Degnan. Now the disc comes around to Helton. Big bid by both players, and Degnan able to hold on for Chicago. And the offense for the Wildfire has been very poor, and as I say that, they turn it over. The disc goes right through the hands of Casey Degnan, who may have been battling the sun a little bit there, which is low on the horizon. Allen for New York. Little flip over to Bryant, who hits Katz, and Katz looking upfield before he had secured the disc, and he watches it slip out of his fingers. So continued sloppiness here with just now 46 seconds to go in the third quarter. And really, it's Chicago that has a lot of the pressure right now. They need to score. They're down 6, and you don't want to be down 6 heading into the fourth quarter in the AUDL. Big shot from Helton, looking for Degnan. Big layout, but not enough. 25 seconds on the clock. Chicago has plenty of time to score here. Let's see if they can finish off the point. Alan Gillan into the end zone for Degnan, who had a great point. And indeed, now with 18 seconds on the clock, Chicago manages to get it done. And it'll be interesting to see how New York plays out this point. Are they going to try to take a shot or just hold the disc and make sure that the disc only goes up in the air with the time headed to 0?
Yeah, if the Empire right now, the main thing that they can't afford are quick goals from the Wildfire. A few quick goals could get them back into this game pretty easily, and we've seen it time and time again. The Empire have been prone to giving up streaks at the end of the game. The Wildfire, they just scored after a pretty hard-fought point, but they cannot stand to score points that take that long for the rest of this game. That point took them 3.5 minutes to score. They just don't have that luxury. They're going to get back in this. They need some goals, and they need them quickly.
Time ticking down, 15 seconds now. Empire with it in the hands of Ryan Drost. 7 seconds on the clock. Ryan Drost holding. 4 seconds on the clock. And he's going to try to throw it down the field. It's not going to get to the end zone, so the quarter will run out. And John Kolb with the catch block to end the quarter. So, a very strange and different third quarter. Just 3 points scored. And yet again, it's the Empire coming out on top, outscoring Chicago 2-1, and they take now a 5-point lead into the final period.
What was that, a total of 3 points that
That's right.
quarter?
Well, that was the 4th point there that they just played, but nobody scored.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's that's pretty unusual.
And it shows to show you how many turnovers there were in the third quarter. Both teams unable to take care of the disc.
Certainly one of the biggest changes in feel from first to second half of a game that I've seen in recent history.
And I have to say, it's striking to me to watch this Wildfire team after watching Machine play last weekend as essentially this same team as a club unit. And they were their offense was untouchable. They really were impressive on Sunday, up and down the field, moving the disc well side to side, and then taking well-timed hucks. They've had almost nothing against this Empire defense over the last 5 or 6 points that they've had on offense. They've sort of slowly worked it to midfield and then totally run out of steam. And when they have taken shots, it seems more often than not that they've been out of frustration or out of a little bit of impatience. And that's often turned into turnovers.
Yeah, the deep shots that we've seen so far have felt like them trying to use their athleticism to score points instead of using their system and their chemistry to score points. And, at this level, everyone has athleticism. You're not going to be able to just jump over guys and throw further than, other guys can run. So, without the chemistry that they've shown, that the Machine team has shown, this Wildfire team is, just not putting up the points they need to stay in this game.
It's going to be a long road back for the Wildfire. They're going to need some quick scores right out of the gate here in the fourth quarter, which they just haven't really shown. They had a couple early scores that were quick, but it almost seems like a time where now you need Brody more than ever. You just have to take some shots and try to take your one-on-ones. Honestly, they haven't put up that many big hanging hucks and tried to let players like A.J. Nelson just go up and make a play.
Yeah, well, it's what I talked about earlier. Brody in a lot of ways is just an unstoppable offensive weapon, but he could also be at the center of the chemistry issues that we've seen them not clicking. So, is he helpful? Is it hurtful to continue this Brody experiment? This is the first real game that he's played in so far this year. How much longer can you continue to try something that isn't working?
And we've seen even at the highest levels in other sports, when amazing players come back, it's not always easy to integrate them into the offense. It took some time for example, Russell Westbrook to get back to full speed with the Oklahoma City Thunder. When Derrick Rose came back last season for the Chicago Bulls, it took time for him to get back into the offense. And it's not a surprise. You see Brody on the field really unable to run full speed, it seems like.
It's also not a surprise that we continue to see him on the field in this state, because as hard as it is to get back in sync and get back up to that level, it's even harder for your coach to not put you in, knowing what you are actually capable of. And Brody is capable of things that most people are not.
Toronto Rush now leading the DC Breeze 12-4, so we'll keep a tab on that game for you. Throw up the middle, and what do you know? It's another run-through D for Ryan Drost. Unbelievable. A.J. Nelson the victim this time, as he just didn't attack the disc, and Drost made him pay. So a great start to the fourth quarter here for the New York Empire, and if they can cash this in, they're going to be well on their way to Toronto for the championship weekend. Childers with a nice strike cut, gets it ahead. Nice grab by Ryan Drost off of the poor throw from Childers, and now into the end zone. So Ryan Drost gets the D and then throws the assist. And the Empire take a 6-point lead, and everything is going right for New York here in the second half.
I think from now on we should just make an agreement with the audience that we're not going to announce these anymore. Just assume that it was one of the Drosts.
It seems like it so far in this game. I mean, that has to be the fourth or fifth run-through D by one of the Drost twins that we've seen.
And that's the crazy thing, is they're just running. These aren't big layout Ds. How are teams not noticing, these guys are going to run through the disc?
Throughout the game, we've seen it. And so another point and another miscue for the Wildfire. And time now really running out on them. 11 minutes, 20 seconds to go in the game. 6-point lead for the Empire. Justin Allen with his big flick pull. It's going to land about 10 yards in front of the end zone. Colin Geppert with it for the Wildfire.
I'm still very surprised we haven't seen just a 2-pass pull play out of the Wildfire.
They've really been trying to work it against the Empire and just haven't had a lot of success. Up the line into the hands of Neil Phelps. And a throw into a poach as Izzy Bryant jumped the lane. And the Empire off and running again, and Justin Allen's not going to waste any time. He fires down the field, and it's caught. Not quite into the end zone, so the Empire are going to have to dish it back. Jesse Lieberman with the disc for New York. Swung all into the middle for Allen. Allen gets it to Bryant. Two-man game between the two of them. Now Bryant looking for Ryan Drost. And Ryan Drost adds a little bit more to his stat sheet with that score. And it's now a 7-point lead for the New York Empire. And what a game for Ryan Drost. And you can be sure that the Toronto Rush, whoever ends up taking on this Empire team, are going to be a little bit more prepared for Drost than the Wildfire look like they have been today.
You'd think that people would start to learn. They're among the lead leaders, both the Drost brothers and D's. Every week, if you listen to this broadcast, you hear their name more than anyone else, I would argue. Anyone not playing offense, at very least.
Mike Dross leads the team in Ds with 31. At number 2, Ryan Drost, 27.
There's an argument to be made. I haven't been keeping track this game, but Ryan certainly could be catching up to Mike after his performance so far this game.
He could surpass him in this game. You're absolutely right.
Wonder how keenly aware he is of that.
Toronto up 13-5 on DC. Here's a big backhand from Brody Smith. He's looking for Goose Helton down the field. It's going to hang up a bit, but Goose Helton makes a nice adjustment, catches the disc, and into the end zone for A.J. Nelson. And if you're a Wildfire fan, you have to be asking yourself, where has that been all game?
That is, yeah, where has that been all game? Where has that been in the second half? You know, it's just, it seems so obvious when the small ball game wasn't working. They had to open it up. And you're already engaged in this Brody experiment trying to integrate him back into the offense. How has that play not been called yet?
And honestly, every time we've seen that, Brody to Goose, it's been an effective play. I think they had one turnover early in the first half on a throw that hung up a bit. But when they've had it into either a jump ball situation or to a step for Helton, it's been an easy huck completion, and then Helton has always been able to find a streaking cutter for the score.
You know, Ultimate is not a game that one guy can just take over, but if you have the right two guys, it is a game that they can take over, and those are two guys that if they are clicking, they could take a game over and work their way back into it.
Matt Bode with the disc for the Empire offense, who now just need to be average to close out a win here against Chicago. And some big contact on the field, and the New York bench coming out a little bit. Matt Auletta fired up, and I think we're going to have a timeout, and it's a little bit of a scuffle near midfield. And Matt Auletta, who's known here in New York as a bit of a hothead, is definitely angry. And so we're going to have a little bit of discussion here. The referee's now talking to some of the Wildfire players, and I do think we're going to have a timeout. And there is some chatter here. Walden Nelson now coming to Matt Auletta. And I'm surprised there's no referees right there. But in the interim, it's going to count as a score. So Taylor Brooks gets into the end zone for the Empire, but a little bit of chippiness coming onto the field now as the Empire go back up by 7.
Seems clear from the referee's fairly nonchalant response that they haven't seen quite enough scuffles to have those instincts of how to react built into them yet.
Well, you got to think it's something that the league might have to take a look at in the offseason. Obviously, we haven't had any major incidents, but to see the Empire offense coming out, the Empire sideline coming out onto the field there, you know, in a lot of sports, that's going to get a lot of people suspended for a game. Obviously, I think that would be an overreaction in this circumstance, but
it's certainly an area, you know, of crowd control, the interaction of the fans and the teams that as the league evolves, they'll have to put rules in place before something happens.
18-11 the score, 9.5 to go here in the fourth quarter. Bob Lou with the disc. He's going to swing it over to A.J. Nelson. Now with Brody. Brody not really seeing any cutters. Jeff Sardneski dishes it back to Helton. And you know the Empire are doing their job well when they've got Nelson and Helton coming back into the backfield for short unders. Jeff Sardneski dishes to Brody.
Yeah, you nailed it, Charlie. There couldn't be a better sign that they're doing their job, because those are the guys that the Wildfire went downfield for Brody to put the disc up to, and they just are not getting the openings.
Dan Williams dishes to Lou, who fires a hammer across the field to Nelson. Now back to Brody, double team, but he's going to put it up anyway. He's looking for Helton down the field, and Helton's going to make the play. Beautiful throw from Brody Smith, and a nice play down the field from Jonathan Goose Helton as the Wildfire get back within 6.
Yeah, it seemed Brody realized that they needed to take a shot at the end zone before more time ran off the clock. The Wildfire just can't afford to swing the disc back and forth anymore. They need to take shots. If they don't make them, then they don't make them. They need to get the disc back quickly. So they similarly can't let the Empire just waste time going back and forth across the field.
Toronto Rush now up 10 on the DC Breeze. It's 14-4 up north. So
looks like we're headed for another semis rematch.
And it was a must-watch game last year between New York and Toronto. Toronto pulled away midway through the second half, but it was well contested by the Empire. And I think really the Empire a significantly better team than they were last year, and it should be an exciting matchup.
Yeah, Empire, much deeper team that's played against Toronto just much more competently this year. You know, last year it didn't seem that they were quite in the same class, but you know, they keep up with them and more.
Taylor Brooks with it for New York. A big inside flick all the way across the field, finds Wininger. Isaac Saul to Wininger. Back to Saul. He gets it across the field into the hands of Matt Bode, who's going to put up a hammer out into the open side, break side space, and it's a nice shot into the end zone and into the hands of Noah Saul. So the New York offense continues to look good after a little bit of a shaky start to begin the second half, and it's back to a 7-point lead for New York.
I will say, Charlie, the posture of the offensive unit coming onto the field for the Wildfire is not that of a team that seems poised to climb back into this thing.
Well, it's really from the first point of the game, it's been about whether their defense can start getting something going, and it really hasn't. You know, they had 3 chances on the first point out of the second half, which had they scored, it would have been a 3-point game, and you feel like, hey, we're right there.
Yeah.
Instead, they get scored on. They get scored on again. Suddenly they're down 5 heading into the fourth quarter, and now that's ballooned to 7. And they just have not had answers for the Empire offense.
I would expect this disc to make its way to the air much more quickly than we saw in the last point.
Brody Smith is facing a little bit of a junk zone look here from the Empire. Bob Liu with a scuba over into the soft spot in the zone.
That was incredible.
Bob Liu, one of the great throwers on this team. Dan Williams throws a hammer across the field to Liu. Another scuba from Liu. A.J. Nelson holding now about 10 yards outside the end zone. Liu again, now swings to Helton. Helton up the gut to Saradneski. He wants to get rid of it. Dishes it back to Helton. Now Helton firing out into the corner, and he finds his man. Nice shot there from Helton to Dan Williams. And the Wildfire offense looking much better here the last couple of points, but still a long road for them with 6.5 minutes to go here in the game.
Yeah, 50 seconds to score, pretty solid. You know, not as quickly as they could have, but better than a lot of the points so far in this sloppy second half. Huge key for the Wildfires making a stop here. You know, with 6:33, it's not out of the question to see them get back into this game. We saw it last year with the Phoenix and the Empire. All seemed wrapped up, pretty much the same situation, and that became a game. That was a game that came down to the last point.
Pull trails down into the hands of Matt Auletta. Now with Isaac Saul ahead to his brother Noah. And as a Wildfire player fell down, Empire unable to take advantage down the field. Auletta with a nice strike cut, finds some room. He's going to swing it over to Winninger. Now Noah Saul. Matt Stevens, back to Saul. Saul looking into the end zone, but it's too far out in front of Winninger. And that inside flick needed to be perfect, and it was just off of perfect, which meant that it became a turnover.
It's a tough throw to have sit down into space, and that's really what he needed it to do.
At the timeout, the score is your New York Empire 19, Chicago 13.
So a timeout on the field, score 19-13 in favor of the New York Empire. 5 minutes, 51 seconds to go here in the game, and it's really a lovely evening here in New York. Thanks for being with us here on UltiWorld as we present this first round of the AUDL playoffs. See the Chicago huddle. Toronto Rush now leading 17-6 over the DC Breeze. San Jose out west punched their ticket to the championship weekend yesterday with a solid win over the San Francisco Flamethrowers. So the Spiders, who many considered coming into the season as the favorite with some absolutely huge names in Ultimate, including Bo Kittredge and Kurt Gibson, they'll be headed and they will face the winner of Madison versus Indianapolis, which is about to take place, and that game will be streamed live on ESPN3. So you can get ready to head over to that game. I believe it starts right now, 7 o'clock. So watch the end of this game, 5 minutes, 40 seconds to go, and then you can tune in to Evan Lepler and the ESPN3 team in Madison. Whistle, foul against the Empire, 10-yard penalty. Brody Smith will walk it up. Izzy Bryant on the mark, and he will swing immediately to Bob Liu. Sends it all the way across to Dan Williams. Back to Liu. Liu with a nice fake, moves the mark. Now with Helton. And now they take a shot looking for A.J. Nelson. Nelson's going to have to lay out, and he can't get there. And it looks like Nelson may be hurt on the play. May have come down hard on his right shoulder. He's holding his right chest and shoulder area right now. Justin Allen was the defender on the play. Looked like there was maybe a bit of contact, but it seems more likely that the injury, if there is one, took place when he hit the ground on the bid.
Yeah, it seemed to just land a little bit awkwardly.
He is up and walking. And we'll keep an eye on Nelson. One of the big contributors for this Wildfire team. So it's going to be Billy Katz who's going to bring the disc to the line for the Empire with 5 minutes on the clock here in the fourth quarter. Williams on the mark. Katz ahead to Allen. Allen gets it to Bryant. Bryant up the line to Ryan Drost, who's going to fire down the field looking for his brother Mike on the goal line and now into the end zone for Ben Ivers. And the Empire defense gets it done. Back to a 7-point game. And it's all New York here in the second half. And you can argue that the Empire really have played better here in the second half than they did in the first.
Yeah, it's interesting. First half was an excellent half of Ultimate. It's tough, but they have had bigger plays in the second half for sure.
And I think the offense played a little better in the first half, but they have persevered through some turnovers here in the second, and they haven't had that letdown that we've seen from them, which has been such a problem for the Empire, letting teams back into games. They really have never taken their foot off the gas pedal here.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a huge mental boost for them too, going into this next game, presumably against the Rush. Perseverance is something that has not necessarily came out in their favor in different circumstances. The first game of the year against the Rush, one break going the right way, one non-throwaway, and they're winning that game. So this is a great showing for the Empire, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them continue to just lay it on here in the last 4 minutes.
Bob Lou to the outside for Helton. Now with Colin Geppert, who's swinging across over here to the near side for Williams, who's going to look to the end zone. And a big layout, and what a great catch down in the far end zone. Not a lot of Chicago fans here, but that was one of the best plays we've seen in this game. And that will put them back within 6 with 4:27 to go here in the game. Toronto leading DC 17-6 at the break.
Seems like Toronto's offense and defense are firing on all cylinders.
I'm sure they'll be eager to play in front of a home crowd during the championship weekend. Matt Auletta swings over to Isaac Saul, who goes across to Matt Stevens. Winninger with it. Hits Auletta. Auletta steps around, throwing a backhand. He's going to float it out there, looking for Taylor Brooks. Brooks makes the play. Taylor Brooks with another huge grab down in the far end zone. And with just under 4 minutes to go, New York Empire leading the Wildfire 21-14.
Seems as if the Brody Smith experiment has come to an end for the day. He's over on the bench icing his knee. Seems like the wise choice at this point. Got a couple big weeks and months ahead of him playing for Johnny Bravo, looking for a World's title.
Indeed. Brody has been all over the country. A couple years ago, played for the Austin club team, double wide. And then has been playing for Chicago here in the AUDL. And now will take the field for Denver. Johnny Bravo, as you mentioned, headed to the World Club Championships, which start here in just a couple of weeks. Bob Lou checks it in for the Wildfire. Saradneski hits Helton.
Empire defense still running as hard as ever.
Dan Williams holding, and he's fouled. Matt Lamar on the mark, looking a bit incredulous. And now a nice shot from Williams into the end zone as he finds Greg Slover for the Wildfire score.
Chicago scores with 3 minutes and 21 seconds left in the game. Score is your New York Empire, 22, Chicago 14.
Not a lot left in this one. Seems like both sides just kind of going through the motions. The Empire offense going out there, basically tasked with doing their job, and that's use up some clock and make sure that you don't get broken really quickly. So that's it. The only bad thing, the only bad result for this point for the Empire would be a very quick turn and break. Otherwise, they waste 45 seconds, minute. They've done their job.
Six-point lead for the Empire, 3:20 to go. Not an inconceivable lead to give up, but a very improbable one.
Especially the way this game has gone, Charlie. We talked at the beginning about how the AUDL is prone to there being runs and scoring. Just haven't seen it from both sides.
Very nice D there from Casey Degnan. One of the best plays we've seen from Chicago in the second half on the defensive side of the disc, so we'll see if they can cash it in. John Kolb with it. Flips it back to Helton. Now Dane Olson. And a hammer across the field is going to be too far out in front, so the Wildfire give it right back with 2.5 to go here in the fourth quarter.
It's just been that type of day for the Wildfire, Charlie. A play that these guys are very used to completing, just a little bit out of reach.
Isaac Saul holding for the Empire. Matt Bode over to Noah Saul. Nice find to Isaac Saul, who hits Auletta, who is poached. Noah Saul. Less than 2 minutes to go here in the game. Auletta over to Isaac Saul. Isaac Saul is going to put up a flick down into the end zone, and another unbelievable catch from Taylor Brooks. The game may be out of reach for the Wildfire, but Taylor Brooks is looking to make the highlight reel, and he's got back-to-back big skies as the Empire go back up by 7.
Everybody knows that top 10 doesn't care about the situation, Charlie. People are just trying to make the highlight reels.
And he certainly will with that one. 1:43 to go in the game, and it's been all New York. Thanks for joining us here on Ulti World.
Really couldn't have asked for a better day to have this game.
Absolutely, and it's been a pleasure bringing these New York home games to a live audience throughout the course of this season. Justin Allen with the pull for New York. And really, we got to start thinking about the next round. Toronto and New York, it's a great matchup, and Toronto is the beneficiary of having the championship weekend in their hometown. They'll be at full strength, and you have to wonder, are the Empire going to lose some players because of the long journey up to Toronto? Obviously, it's the biggest games of the season, but as we see a shot down the field from the Wildfire, it's going to go towards the back, and what a grab down there in the far end zone from Jonathan Helton. Looked like he might be out the back, but he made the play. And so another highlight reel play there, this time from Chicago. But you think it's the time of year where there are weddings, there are various things going on, and people miss games. We've seen it all season in the AUDL. Away teams often just can't bring their full roster for a variety of reasons. And, yes, it's the playoffs, but Toronto's going to be certainly with an advantage playing at home. And it's going to be interesting to see if New York can finally take them down. I mean, obviously you got to bet on Toronto if you're betting straight up, but I think more than ever it seems like it's going to be a close match the way that New York has been playing down the stretch of this season.
Yeah, you know, Charlie, I would hope that the Empire roster is a full squad there, because you would hope these guys would want that last shot at Toronto after 2 really close battles with them earlier this year.
Yeah, and if you remember back to the first game of the season, the Empire played Toronto. It was live right here on UltiWorld, and they were ahead most of the game. The Empire really came out as the better team, a lot like this game, and then suddenly Toronto decided that they were going to turn it on in the fourth quarter, and they started to narrow the gap and eventually took the lead in the final minutes of the fourth quarter. But today, not the same story. It's been all Empire from start to finish. 40 seconds to go here in the game. Isaac Saul with it. And New York's going to punch their ticket to Toronto and very likely earn themselves another game against the Rush. Empire happy to just swing it back and forth here and run out the clock. On another nice defensive effort from the Wildfire, but really it's too little too late. 10 seconds on the clock. Time winding down here in New York. And the Wildfire are going to put it into the end zone here. It's Casey Degnam with the score. So now the lead trimmed to 5, but with just 1.9 seconds on the clock, that's going to do it for this game. So much like the end of the first half, we're going to end the second half with a pull in name only, where the players will pull and then someone will touch the disc and that'll be it.
One of the new nuances of the pro timed game that we're still getting used to.
Madison Radicals leading the Indianapolis Alley Cats 3-2. And that game live on ESPN3. So we'll send you over there right now. Here's the pull from the Wildfire. Noah Saul will catch the disc, throw it to his brother Isaac, who will throw it into the stands as the New York Empire close out a victory here in the first round of the playoffs over the Chicago Wildfire by a final score of 22-17. Home crowd gonna go home happy.
Absolutely, Charlie. And you know, the home team's gonna walk away from this with a lot of confidence, feeling like they have a real shot of upsetting the Rush when they visit them, presumably in the next round.
Thanks so much for listening and watching here on UltiWorld. Really appreciate you being with us. For Wes Kronk and all of us here at UltiWorld, I'm Charlie Eisenhood signing off as the Empire defeat the Chicago Wildfire 22-17 here in New York.